Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That is where we're starting from today. Hello. Welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a spectacular day. We are starting out this episode with this quote, this incredible moving quote from Marianne Williamson. And if this resonates with you, you are going to want to stick around because at the end of the episode, I'm going to share with you something you do not want to miss out on. Be ready. Here is the full quote, my friends. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? She goes on to say, your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Boom. Boom. You know, growth is uncomfortable. And when you hear a quote like that, it feels wildly uncomfortable if it's speaking to you. If I just read that quote to you and it washed off you like water off a duck's back, then you know what? No need to keep listening to this episode. But if I read that quote to you and it stirred something inside of you that made you realize, oh, shoot, I've been playing small. I have been telling myself that I'm not worthy. Who am I? Who am I to be fabulous? Who am I to be inspirational? Who am I to break generational patterns? Who am I to stand on the forefront and actually impact incredible leagues of men and women, of children, of patients, of teams, to disrupt the medical or dental system as we know it today? Who am I to be a disruptor? Who am I to disrupt the way we think we can show up in society? Who am I to think that I can break these limitations that have been around forever? If you've been thinking that, then listen up, because it is exactly that attention to the desire for growth and change that makes you the perfect person. You know, I think this need for growth, this burning inside of us that, man, I feel like something needs to change. This is such a unique characteristic. And so often we push it down. We tell ourselves, no, not now, not now. I'm just so-and-so from somewhere, right? We have these stories that keep us small. But it's not the failure that's scaring us. It's the success. Can we just allow for that for a moment? Just allow for that. You know, in every part of my life, at every turning point where I've transcended myself, there's been that moment, that fear of who am I to think I can do this? Sometimes we call that imposter syndrome, right? What are they going to really think of me? Judgment sets in. But what we're missing is that first step before the judgment was the dream. Before the self-doubt came the desire. And that fire matters. that little ember that's beginning to burn, before we squash it down, that's where I want to start. That's the nidus of who you are. And it's so interesting because in personal development, we often hear, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? As if failure was the big scary thing. Guys, we know failure at this point. We've all failed enough. Every single one of us can look over our lifetime and say, oh my gosh, every time I failed, there was enormous learning. I mean, this is old news by this point. Yes, every moment of failure was actually a point of greater growth and learning than all the successes. Ta-da! Nothing new. So what is it? Why don't we act on that burning desire to be more, do more, create more, lead more, heal more, grow more, expand more? What is it? And I think Marianne Williamson nailed it in this beautiful quote of hers, that it's not the darkness that frightens us. It's actually our light. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. Why? And this is the part of personal development that people don't like to talk about. It's that when we see ourselves in that greater space, in that bigger space, when we start recognizing that we can take up more space, the question becomes, who do I have to be that woman? What does that mean about my friendships, about my marriage, about my current position in my work, about the way I spend my time, about the responsibilities and the awarenesses I'll have every day? We are constantly using our current lived situation to hide behind, to play small. Look, getting bigger, growing, ascending yourself, transforming yourself means that you're going to be someone else tomorrow. And that is scary. Yes, it's not the fear of failure. Failure's old school, old hat. It's the old news. Yes, we're going to fail. We're human beings. We're going to fail. That's not the scary thing. We've done that before. It's the success that's so scary. And it's so interesting because we have labels and limits that hold us back. We find ourselves in a certain level of success and we think, okay, this is the ultimate. I am a doctor. And this is why I love working with our colleagues in this community, because really, is there greater educational aspiration than being a doctor? I mean, that's what we tell ourselves, right? And essentially, you're healing people. I mean, this is what you've been working towards for your entire career path. You are a doctor, you are healing. Maybe you're even leading a team. So who am I to dream even bigger? Is often the soundtrack, the talk track that's in our heads. But it doesn't matter where we are, at what point in our journey we are. When that little ember starts glowing inside of you, it will not be silenced. It won't. And of course, there's an uncomfortable in between. There's an uncomfortable in between the desire and the becoming, where it feels wildly uncomfortable and unfamiliar. Just this morning, when I went out for my walk run, which, yes, at this point, I am back to a walk run. I'm building up my running again. And that is the value that I have. That is the growth that I seek. So I am in the uncomfortable, that really uncomfortable of trying to build up my cardiovascular strength, trying to build up the muscles in my legs and in my core to try to get back to that level of running that I love, right? So here I am. I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the uncomfortable. And I'm using this as a metaphor. And it's so fascinating because when I was out this morning, I found 3 different snake skins. You know, when snakes molt and they leave their skin behind. And I thought, wow, isn't this interesting? There's a moment in that snake's life. They're one person, one snake, one shape, one size, where there is growth before they become the larger snake. And in that moment, before they molt, before they leave their old skin behind to accept and take on the new one, where there is massive discomfort. I read once that king cobras actually retreat to a space, to a hole, because they're so vulnerable and because it's so painful to be going through this growth. There's a moment when they haven't yet shed that skin where they're in extreme discomfort and pain. And that is where we're sitting in this beautiful quote from Marianne Williamson today, and where I'm asking if you are finding yourself in this moment of time. When you have lived a certain lifestyle, a certain work style, a certain relationship style, a certain evolution of yourself, where you've lived that person, and it was great, it was fabulous, it was really good stuff, friends. Maybe you wrote a book, maybe you opened a practice, maybe you married somebody who you loved, and in this moment, you're realizing, ooh, wait a minute. There's something burning inside of me that's saying I'm meant for more. It's called growth. And in that moment, that's when the pain sets in. That's when the emotional and psychological pain sets in. Ooh, am I capable? Am I deserving? Am I worthy? Who am I? To think that there's more than this. We start allowing judgment to strip away from our dreams. You already have so much. Who do you think you are? Look at the abundance around you. And sometimes we even do what's called spiritual bypassing, where we fly high and we say, oh no, this is enough. This is more than enough. I can be happy with this. But maybe there's a little whisper that just won't go away that says, oh no, you are meant for more. And every time we try to silence that voice, it gets louder and louder. That's the discomfort of the snake before it molts. Because molting means having to release a part of you. Molting means having to say goodbye to an old identity. Molting means stepping into that new version of yourself. And oh yes, is that terrifying and scary. But I'm going to remind you of Marianne Williamson's quote. It's not scary because of our darkness. It's not scary because of the possibility of failure. It's scary because of the brightness, because of the light, because of the potential, because of the possibility. And when you allow yourself that, you give yourself permission to stand up on your own 2 feet again. Every part of my journey as yours, and I'm asking you to reflect on yours right now, but when I look back on my journey, every single part of my journey absolutely necessitated that growth and expansion and that molting of an old self, an old persona, an old label that was limiting me and keeping me small. And then I was too big for that old skin, that old snake skin, and there is no turning back. When I first wanted to go into medicine and dentistry, there was that fear. Who am I to think I can be a doctor? Who am I to apply? When I was going into orthodontics, who am I to think I can be an orthodontist? Man, isn't just being a dentist good enough? Like, come on. When I bought my first practice, who am I to think, what? I am an associate. I have this great paying job. I'm so lucky. I should be so happy. I'm doing the thing I love. Oh no. When I sold my first practice, oh, that was uncomfortable. That practice that I had worked so hard for, that I told myself so many stories around, and that was doing so many great things in the world, and then realizing, oh, wait a minute, I'm meant for more than this. I'm meant for more than this. That was wildly uncomfortable, because now that success that I had achieved, and I'm putting success in quotation marks here, that success that I had achieved, that I had created a desire for, worked towards, succeeded, and was now living it, had actually become the snakeskin that was keeping me small. And giving myself permission to step outside of that took another version of me. And then again, when I opened my second practice from scratch. See how every single step of the way requires us to say goodbye to an old part of ourselves. And what we don't talk about in personal development is how uncomfortable that is. There is a grieving that needs to happen of that old self. There's a grieving that needs to happen every time we transcend into a new relationship. There are relationships we have to say goodbye to. And for those of you who have been on a personal development journey, you know what I'm talking about. There are relationships that are no longer serving you in this new form of you. And that's scary because we get an inkling of that when we start looking towards further growth and ascension. When we see what's possible on the other side, we know there are going to be some things we say goodbye to. Old identities of our own self, because that old identity was keeping you safe and keeping you small. I was the person who, and I knew how to do that really well. But stepping into this new space requires me to be a more evolved version of myself. And here's the thing, guys. This is life. This is what this human experience is all about. This is growth. We have only two options: growth or stagnation and death. That's it. That snake cannot go back to a smaller version of itself. That's not an option. And that feels scary, especially when we've reached a certain level of success, once again in quotation marks, and we realize, oh, wait a minute. That level of success was me basing success on someone else's definition. Maybe it was on material things or other people's opinion of me, but now I have a whole new understanding. Now I know more about myself and what success and happiness looks like. Or maybe I'm just beginning to open that window. And man, there's a little introduction there that no longer looks like who I was yesterday. And let it be okay, because here's the good news, is that you can hold all of it. You can hold the discomfort of growing out of your current snake skin. You can hold the discomfort of molting that older external version of yourself and grieving her and stepping forward into a higher potential. You can do it. And in fact, it is your calling. So whatever that looks like to you, whether it looks like now stepping into business ownership in medicine and dentistry, or stepping into speaking on stage in medicine and dentistry, whether it looks like selling your practice that was your safety net, right? For so many decades, it was who you were. But now you're beginning to realize, oh, wait a minute, I am meant for more. And allow the judgment to just slip away because it's unique to you. Where in your life have you been staying small? Whatever that version of small was to you. Where have you been convincing yourself it's safer to stay in this old snakeskin and stay small? But man, that whisper will not go away. That desire for growth, it's so innate, right? It's so ingrained in us. It's so human and it's so natural to want to grow. We've been doing it since we were tiny. Why do we stop when we're adults? Growth has been a part of your evolutionary process. It's a part of our societal process. It's a part of our Earth's process. We are growing and evolving and changing all the time. So why do we limit ourselves? And the reason why is because we are afraid of our greater success. But that success is the beauty. Let that fear of your greater success also be what's pulling you forward, the potential, the possibility. That hope is what can draw you forward. And you are not alone. You are not alone in this. Every single one of us is entitled to a growth and development journey. Every single one of us is on a growth and development journey. We just get to choose what it looks like. Is it hard? Yes, it is. But it's also the most natural thing you'll ever do. It is the most natural thing you'll ever do, which is why when we don't answer the calling, it feels so uncomfortable and unnatural. So if you're listening to this episode and you know exactly what I'm talking about, if you've been in that place of discomfort where you realize I'm sitting on something here and I'm not allowing myself to step forward into my dreams, my friend, you're not alone. And isn't it time you answered the calling? Isn't it time you said yes? So this episode, if you're hearing it right now, and if you've listened this far into the episode, then I want you to join me this September 24th. We're going to be doing a Meant for More workshop. Go to my website, please, www.thebizofhappiness.com, and click on Meant for More workshop. It is free. It is 100% free, no strings attached. Join me on Sunday, the 24th of September. If you know you are meant for more, and maybe you don't know what that is, maybe it's just this calling inside of you, or maybe you have a little inkling, but it's terrifying at the same time. Meant for more. That's where you need to be. What I promise you in this workshop is we're going to be igniting that voice inside of you. Wherever you are, whether you're a student in medicine or dentistry or veterinary sciences or in chiropractors, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be a student, an associate, a business owner, a speaker, a podcaster. Wherever you are in this service industry, this workshop is meant for you, and it's free, 100% free. You just need to register. And then you need to show up for yourself, because this is exactly what we're going to be talking about, is discovering what is the clarity of that inner voice, that intuitive knowing. How do I know what I'm meant for? It's burning inside of me, and I keep grasping at shiny objects. Do any of you have shiny object syndrome where it's like, oh, maybe that. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll stand on stage. Right? We all go through that at some point. But we're missing the magic, which is the desire underneath it, which is meant for more. And how do we discover that? So join me this September. I'm talking 2023. I don't know who's listening to this episode and when you're listening, but if it's 2023 in September, you're coming to me online. Register, please, at www.thebizofhappiness.com and click on Meant for More workshop, and I'll see you there, because life's too short. Life's too short not to live our dreams. The people in your world are waiting for you to step into your dreams. Your children are watching. Your team is watching. Your friends are watching. We need to be that inspiration. And only when we're liberated from our fear, that's when our presence liberates others to do the same. When you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye-bye.